Hey, how's it going? I just want to do another really quick one based on a hangout that I was on recently. And this is not a negative thing towards this guy, Daryl Barry, but we had I just jumped on his hangout and we started talking about, he's into like aliens and like all this sort of, I would describe it as 4D, 5D, 6D stuff, like outside of our 3D reality. And it's intriguing. You don't get that from ballers ever, really at all. So, but he's like literally way out there. But we started kind of. I always try and filter those, really everything through the Bible, not just these topics, but just even day-to-day stuff, like what I see going on in the news and stuff. But so the Bible inevitably will come up when a person's engaging with me on topics like this. But it started getting into you don't know that the Bible's true, and what translation, and like it's been altered and all these things, and we know this, it's not new. Some of the translations, the recent ones, don't reference skin color, for example. I've seen from the Hebrews that certain translations remove things about the skin color of the Israelites, and also just other things, like just in the very least, it's not even that the thing needs to be translated. It doesn't even matter, because like the church is not even allowed to teach like or read from like 95% of the Bible. I've never seen a mainstream church go through Revelation in any kind of serious way and address what place could be spiritually Sodom and Egypt, which is obviously America, and then Old Testament. Really never throughout my Christian, quote unquote, Christian journey, people talking about all the chaos, confusion, wars, destruction, that God was doing in the Old Testament, and some controversial verses in the New Testament where Jesus talks about people that don't want him as king to be slain right in front of him. This is a very different Jesus that is presented in most churches under the 501c3 nonprofit designation. And so there is manipulation everywhere from all different directions. And even if we did have the purest Bible source, it doesn't matter anyway, because it won't be taught, like I was saying, it won't even be taught to Christians in its entirety. So it really, for me, from my vantage point, is kind of a cosmetic thing. But that's what I wanted to bring up about this. Like, I remember in grad school, I was talking to my advisor, and I've done a couple videos about, my struggles during that time. Really just being humbled, thinking I was something quote unquote special, and then realizing very quickly, what smart people are like, and what really, really, really smart people are like. And he was kind of giving me a story as a form of encouragement. Like he was genuinely like supportive, during this time, even though it's not good for advisors, because like, they spend money on you, and they hope that you'll come in and produce some results that they can put their name on, and and it'll help their career. So this is not, thankfully he was, well established in his career, so he didn't need like the next student to quote make him famous. But so he was able to be a little bit more sort of philosophical about these kind of situations. But he gave me a story of another student that he thought might be similar to like what I was going through. It was like that gave him he gave that student a book, like just he wanted him to read it, and before he assessed whether he was going to accept this student into his lab, he wanted him to just read it, and just get a feel for it, and come back to him with like what his thoughts are. And then so he told me that he gave this kid this book, obviously related to communication systems or information theory or something, and then the student comes back and like goes into like a couple equations, and like asks specific questions, as if like the advisor was like teaching it like in a classroom setting, and he was going to be tested on it. And he was just use that example to explain to me that people who are into research obviously get into the details, no doubt, but he was hoping the person would read the book and want to know about like the direction of the field, like what is known, what is established, what is the quote body of knowledge in this book, expressed in this book, and where can it go, and some thoughts towards like the next step, and all that. Basically like just more of a appreciation, for what is the quote spirit, the essence of this book, and what is the knowledge base that it's summarizing. and articulating. And like this student, I'm not trying to make fun of him because obviously he was telling the story because he thought that I was in a similar position, and this student was probably even possibly better at the details, than I was and than I am. So I'm not putting this person down in any way, but just to kind of draw an analogy towards like the way people handle the Bible, it's the same. It's like this person was caught in the minutia, the absolute detail, and he's standing, across from a person who's, a PhD potential thesis advisor, wanting to know where the field is going, like what direction is that whole area going, and how can we be a part of it and publish papers to advance it. And it's the same thing with the Bible, and it's not even a shot to Darrell Lee Berry Jr., but just others who are quote unquote outside of the faith, but they'll just nitpick. And this spirit that's out there is becoming very, very obvious, that people are like, oh, I don't know, I can't trust it, and I don't know if it's reliable and all that. These people are just Satanists, like they're getting in the minutia of like little kind of cosmetic sort of things, but not reading the Bible and understanding what the narrative, and like asking questions about what it's really about. What is the essence, the spirit of the Bible? What's the spirit of Jesus? What was he all about? And all that kind of stuff. And so it's a very, very similar sort of nitpicking that's going on, and people are just completely missing the boat, missing the story. And I would say even inside Christian circles as well, it's the same thing. It's like the narrative that's going on, that's being expressed in the Bible, to me is an incredible one. It's an incredible ethic that's being taught, that God first comes to earth amongst people that are quote unquote lesser than him, but he shows that for him to be considered the leader, the King of Kings, he has to come as a servant, and he's washing his disciples' feet, and ultimately dies at the hands of people that he was there to love and to sup with. And then to top it all off, he forgives them. He asks God to forgive those that did that to him. And so that's just an incredibly, beautiful narrative, that we have, in my opinion, the luxury to defend. That's an incredible story, that is the way God is. Obviously, there are a lot of other things in the Bible that are extremely difficult to understand, and I respect when people go into those kind of things, because it is hard for us to understand, even people who've been into the Bible for many, many years. But I don't have respect for people who just nitpick, and even if we did give them the authentic translation, they're not going to believe anyway. And so to me, they're just people who, are what I call like peanut galleries. It's the same kind of vibe in the ball earth. You bring them tests or things, and they just don't. It's just criticism. They don't want to come up with anything new or think about it or come up with anything unique and all that. And this spirit, this vibe is very, very prevalent, in the world right now. And, to me, it's becoming very, very, very obvious. People are just kind of missing the point, and, just stuck, in a particular narrative. And so in other places, Jesus also says to not throw our pearls to pigs. And so, I think it's okay to kind of get a sense of what people are all about. And even with this guy, Darrell, like I offered to like do a hangout with him and talk about, tests that we could come up with. And he's like, he didn't want to. And so, it's like, there's no real desire for a lot of people, and it's not even a shot to him, but just really all people, to be creative, and to think and to see the big picture and see what's going on. The Bible, what God wants, I suspect, is God is essentially giving us the book. Like in my story, that advisor his name was Dr. Ajang. He gave that student a book. God has given us a book. He wants us to read it, and he's gonna, I suspect, if the God of the Bible exists, he'll ask us things, not just about that, but about our life. And then we're not going to sit there and say, he doesn't necessarily want us to like focus on like one little incident, and again, I'm not trying to say that God would trivialize things that we go through, but it'd be like, what's really going on? What's at the higher level? And so Jesus says in many, I would say almost pretty much in all instances, he's always raising people's minds to the spirit world, to the kingdom. And so Dr. Ajang wanted this student to read the book and get a feel for that field. Let's just say it was information encoding theory. What is it, and then where is it going? God wants us to read the book and get an appreciation for the book ourselves and where are we going. And where do we want to go? And that place, Jesus says in this verse in Luke 12, would be the kingdom. And think towards that. And how do we get us and groups of people towards that and work towards that, advance the kingdom of heaven? Jesus says the kingdom is among us. So what does that mean? It would be spirits. It's souls. It's not an actual place that like people get plucked into and then, that's what it is. It has to be a group of souls, because all the other things would just be an environment that those souls exist in, and so it has to be us, people, like souls, energy, spirits, vibrations, whatever you call them, that create this quote unquote kingdom, and they would all be aligned. And in my opinion, they would all be aligned to the mind of God, the way that God thinks, the things that he likes and the things that he dislikes. And he certainly loves truth. And that was expressed perfectly in Jesus Christ, who said that he's the way, the truth, and the life. And so that's, I would let's not make the same mistake that student did. He had the opportunity to read that book and have an interaction with, Dr. Ajahn, who's one of the very, very well-known people in his field. And, he could have had a very, very powerful and motivating discussion about the book and inspired a lot of new ideas. Instead, he read it and got into like one little detail equation point. And it's not wrong. I'm sure Dr. Ajahn could have answered it and would have, but that's not what the discussion was for, not to focus on that one thing. And I think it's very, very analogous to like the way God would want us. Obviously, God will address questions, things that happen in our life. Of course, he would not put us in a situation like this otherwise, but that's not all that he wants, I don't think, from us. He wants us to use the things that are happening in our life and what we do going forward as a way to get us towards, oriented towards the kingdom and imagining it and being a part of it and then inviting others to it. And how do we get there? And think more along those kind of lines. A lot of these ballers, especially the staunch ones, the atheist ones, are degenerates. They can't imagine a better life, and they're not allowed to imagine a better life than the one that is around them right now. And it's becoming very, very obvious for all of us, religious and non-religious, that this place is completely evil, and possibly even worse. It's completely retarded, and possibly even worse than that, it's completely boring. So hope everyone's doing well. Take care. Bye.